good morning, and thank you for tuning into the live broadcast of the Liberty Temple Baptist Church located at 17188 Greenfield Road, Detroit, Michigan, where the Reverend Dr. Steve Bland Jr. is our pastor. You could have chosen to worship anywhere else, but we thank you for choosing us. Please join us in the reading of the Holy Scripture.
Psalms 27. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? And when the wicked, even my enemies and my foes, came upon me to eat up my flesh, they stumbled and fell. Though an host should encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war should rise against me, in this will I be confident. One thing have I desired of the Lord, that will I seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord, and to inquire in his temple. For in the time of trouble he shall hide me in his pavilion. In the secret of his tabernacle shall he hide me. He shall set me up on a rock. And now shall mine head be lifted up above mine enemies round about me. Therefore will I offer in his tabernacle sacrifices of joy. I will sing, yea, I will sing praises unto the Lord. I read to you Psalms 27, verses 1 through 6. May the Lord bless his holy word.
Jesus is the greatest man I know. Jesus is the greatest man I know. He made the moon, the stars, and land and sea. The gentleman of authority said, Jesus is the greatest man I know. Jesus is the worthy Lamb of God. Jesus is the worthy Lamb of God. That is why we bow before your throne, knowing you are God alone. Jesus is the greatest man I know. Jesus is the greatest man I know. He made the moon shine, built a man of authority. Jesus is the greatest man I know. He's the worthy Lamb of God. Oh, yeah. Ooh, yeah, yeah. That is why we bow before you are God alone. The greatest man I know. He's the greatest man I know. Greatest man I know. Listen, Jesus is the man that was slain. Jesus is the man that was slain. Hung and bled and crucified, by his own he was denied. Jesus is the greatest man I know. He's the greatest man I know. He's the greatest man I know. Greatest man I know. He's the greatest man. Greatest man I know. He's the greatest man. Greatest man I know. greatest man I know. Jesus. He's the greatest man. Greatest man I know. Greatest man I know. Greatest man I know. I'm talking about our Savior. He's the greatest. You're the greatest man we know. And God, we come to you with broken hearts. We come to you, God, in need of you. We come to you, God, making a sacrificial praise because you loved us so much. And you said nothing in this world would separate us from your love. And you made that commitment to us when you created us. And even when you knew that we would mess up, even when you knew that sometimes we'd walk away, even when you knew that we would lose faith in you, God, you still made ways. You still remain our way maker. You still remain our promise keeper. Even though we can't see your promises, and even though sometimes it feels like you may have forsaken us, or you may be thinking twice about your promises. But you have a track record of keeping your word. So all of us here in the sanctuary, everyone in their homes, in their cars, in their jobs, that are watching in this moment, no matter what state we're in, psychological, spiritual state, emotional state, no matter what our financial state is, no matter what our social state is, we'll be like David and bless you. You're a way maker. You're a promise keeper. You're a light in darkness. That is who you are. God will bless you. God, we bless you. You are here, turning lives around. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, mending broken hearts. I worship you. I worship you. You are way maker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Come on, tell them. You are my salvation. It's who you are. That is who you are. My everything. That is who you are. My creator. That is who you are. My father. That is who you are. My counselor. That is who you are. My advocate. That is who you are. My intercessor. Who you are. That is who you are.
And in case you don't know who he is, his name shall be called Wonderful. His name shall be called Counselor. His name shall be called Mighty God. His name shall be called Everlasting Father. His name shall be called Prince of Peace. And so if you're pitiful, he's wonderful. If you're heartbroken, he's a counselor. If you're faint and weak, he's a mighty God. If you're fatherless and you're motherless and you don't have parenting and your mentoring in your life, he's an everlasting Father. And if you are in confusion and chaos, he is the Prince of Peace. Lift those hands and give God praise in the sanctuary. The sanctuary of your home, the sanctuary of your car, the sanctuary of your bedroom, the sanctuary of a boardroom, the sanctuary of the space you're in. Wherever you are standing is holy ground. And in this moment, in this space, in this place, lift those holy hands and say, God, that is who you are. And because of who you are, I give you glory. Because of who you are, I give you praise. Because of who you are, I will lift my hands in praise. Lord, I worship you because of who you are. Come on and give God praise. Not for what he's done, but just who he is. Who he is to you, who he is to me. He's our God in ages past. He's our hope for years to come. He's been a shelter through stormy blasts. And he is our eternal home. Come on, let's give God glory and praise. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. And listen, whatever the promises of God are, you don't have to worry about whether he's going to do it. Lean over and tell somebody it's already done. Whatever the promises of God are, it's not something he has to yet perform. He's already done what he said he would do. It's already done. I've been through stormy blasts. I've been through troubled situations. I've seen death in the face. I've walked through the valley of the shadow of death. And the reason I can handle death shadows now is because he's been with me before. And the same God that did it before, he will do it again. Somebody shout, it's already done. It's already done. Oh, I feel preachy. I feel churchy. Somebody say it's already done. Come on, choir, let's lead them, help them understand that God has done what he said he would do. Hold fast to the promises of God. Come on, clap your hands. I feel like praising God. What about you? Everybody, everywhere, come on, get your Sunday rock on. March in like the old saints used to. I know you at home. But come on, get your church walk in. I'm holding fast, yeah.
I'm holding fast to the promise.
Promise he promised
God
me.
has spoken to me.
He promised me.
Promised me.
If I believe,
If I believe,
I can move mountains
I can move mountains
into the sea.
to the sea.
And I believe.
I believe what he said when he said.
Yeah. It's already done.
It's already done.
I'm holding fast.
I'm holding fast to the promise.
I promise God spoke to me. What did he tell you, Pastor? He promised me if I believe, I can do mountains into the sea. I speak it because I believe what he said when he said it's already done.
It's already done.
There's another verse that says, God's word has been said.
Thy word has been spoken in heaven.
Oh, yes, sir.
Now we must call those things to be.
Thy kingdom
Thy
come.
kingdom come.
Thy will be
Thy
done.
will be done.
As it is in heaven,
In heaven
and earth shall be.
shall be.
I believe.
I believe what he said when he said
Ooh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
already done.
I like that verse so much. Let's do that again.
Thy word has been spoken in heaven.
Hallelujah.
Now we must call those things to be.
Somebody reach up and say, Thy kingdom come,
Kingdom come.
and be on earth
Thy will be
as it is in heaven, as it is
It is in heaven.
in earth shall be.
Earth shall be.
Wave that hand and say,
Believe what he said when he said it's already done.
already done.
Already done.
Come on, Brandon, let's get out of there. Oh,
It's done today. It's done. I say
I believe.
that it's already done. His promises, his God.
It's in the word, it's in the book. I believe.
It's already done.
Oh,
Today, it's done. I say
I believe.
that
Whether you believe it or not,
already done.
it's
Promises,
Lord, I believe.
that it's already done.
I believe.
Believe what he said when he said it.
I believe.
Believe what he said when he said it.
I believe.
Believe what he said when he said it.
Lord, yeah. Already.
Already done.
Oh, I like that groove. I think I got everybody in the house up now. It's all. Come on.
It's already
Come on.
done.
It's
It's
already.
already done.
It's already.
It's already done.
Yeah. He said
It's already done.
you don't need to have to believe it. It's already
It's
done.
already done.
If you know it's done, throw that cane down. Get up and just with
It's
me and just say,
already done. It's already done.
oh, yes, sir.
It's already
Yeah.
done. It's already done.
Pick it up one more time. Everybody
It's
say,
already done. It's already done.
ooh, 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 yeah.
Already done.
Lord, Lord, Lord.
It's already done.
I need somebody sure in my life, so I believe.
Already done.
If you ask, it shall be given.
It's already done.
If you seek, you shall find.
It's already done.
If you knock, the door's gonna fly open.
It's already done.
So come on, let's get out of there and say, sing with me. I believe.
What he said when he said it.
Oh, don't you know I believe?
What he said when he said it.
Yeah, yeah.
Believe what
is done. That's why I have confidence. I don't pray bashful. I don't pray wishing. The Bible says when you pray, pray in confidence, believing that whatever you shall ask, you shall receive. You shall have it if you pray in his will, according. According, that's a musical term we get accordion from. It means in harmony with, which means your will must be in harmony with his will. You just can't pray and ask for anything just because you want it. But if it's in harmony with what he wants for you, hallelujah, pray according to his will, and not only will he do it, songwriter says it's already done. He's already done what he said he would do, and that's a good word for somebody who's seeking God to do something right now. We sing songs, Lord, fix it for me right now. And other things because we can't see what God has done. Revelation is something that allows us to have the apocalyptic moment of God pulling back and pulling away so we can see what's already present. But just because you can't see it don't mean it's not there. Just because you can't see it don't mean it has not occurred. Pray believing it's there. So whatever you need in God, pray for healing, pray for financial relief, pray that you might see relationships restored. Pray and you pray even though you can't see, because if you could see it, you would need to have faith. Faith is not seeing but yet believing. But when you pray in faith, God has a way of pulling back the curtains just enough to let you know it's already done. As we pray today, we lift up those who are on our prayer list. We have sick reports, we have praise reports, and then we have bereavement reports. And in every case, I just want you to believe that whatever you ask of God, not only will he do it, he has done it, and it's already done according to his will. We're still lifting you up, Brother Vince Jackson, for strength and power every day, that God will give you what you need in this hour. And for the facing of this hour, believe it's already done for your wife, Julia, and for your family, sons, and others who stand by you. There's a distance only you can go with God. As you walk that way, trust and believe that what he's done in the past, he will continue to perform it. That's what it means when it says he that has done a good work, he will continue to perform it until the day of Jesus Christ. And whatever legacy you may have even established, don't worry about it. It will be left in the lives and the hearts of others to continue. But God ain't through blessing you. Believe it's already done. I'm grateful for Deacon Robert Thomas, our chairman deacons ministry, who faced surgery on this past Monday. Deacons prayed after we had outdoor worship on last Sunday. And what an outdoor worship experience we had outdoors. He had everything in place. He couldn't be there as he was prepping for surgery, but he was able to look and, like a great leader could, see the fruits of his labor as our deacons ministry were all in place, getting everything done according to what plans had already been directed. And then he was able to pray with them and then go into that surgery in confidence, believing that God had everything in his hands and control. And sure enough, 5 hours later, he came out. He's home now with Linda, his wife, Nurse Linda, shall I say. And they're watching this service right now, praising God, knowing and believing it's already done. God's done what he said he would do. And as he recovered, continue to know the promises of God are not failing. It is with sadness that I share the transition of two members of our church family. They made their transition this week on Wednesday, July 8th. I remember Dorothy French made her transition to glory. Dorothy was a quiet but faithful member. I would always get her confused with Dorothy France, because we got a France and a French. I don't know. Amen. One is a language, one is a country. But both of them, wonderful women of God. And I'm just grateful that she had a season to sojourn with us here at Liberty Temple, and she will not be forgotten. I speak to her daughter, I speak to her family, and I say, whatever you want of God, speak it and believe it, it's already done. And then right on the heels of that, in the early dawn morning of Thursday, July 9th, same day, 26 years ago, the Lord called our baby girl, Bria, to glory. I received the call, a call that, yes, was painful and it still is, a call that I dreaded and least expected to hear. But it was a call from Pastor Hobbs, who called to inform me that he was on the scene of an incident where my beloved spiritual son, Minister Kelvin Wheeler, life had been taken. The only thing I disagreed with in his statement when he said that I lost a preacher, what he didn't understand is I lost more than a preacher. I lost a son. Son of Liberty Temple, son of his mother and father and grandmother, and a son of God. The good news is because he was a son of God and is a son of God, Kelvin in the flesh may have died, but Kelvin in the spirit lives forever. I speak to the spirit of those who, like me, still have questions and even are angry because somebody decided to play God and place a weapon in their hands and believe they can take a life they didn't have the privilege to give. And just like I speak out against police brutality when they use an oath and office and a badge to sometimes brutalize people because they can, I also speak out against the people who don't have an oath or a badge to protect and serve, but you have a responsibility to love your brother, to protect your brother. When Cain slew Abel, first murder recorded in the Bible, the question was asked, where is your brother? And I want to speak to the heart and the heart of somebody who maybe life did you wrong or did you bad, and so you've gone on a dark, lonely path. But you need to ask that question and answer that question while you believe that everybody's against you. Where is your brother? Who is your brother? And who are you a brother to? You can't be a brother to somebody who you are taking from instead of giving to. So yes, I pray for whoever that assassin was in that moment, whose depravity caused him to take a precious life, who had not yet fulfilled the promises that I believe God had for him. And no, God did not do that. But he does have a divine will that he can make good out of a bad situation. Evil does not have the last word. Evil is not capable of a perfect plan. And so I wait on God to fulfill his promise. He's not failing. I say to you, mother, I say to you, father, say to you, 8-year-old son, say to you, grandmother, say to you, family, sisters, brother, friends, and yes, church family, wait on the Lord. Be of good courage. That's the end of that text that was read this morning. It said, I almost gave up. I had fainted unless I believed to see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Wait on the Lord. Have faith in God. I'm going to miss my son. We're going to have a memorial or funeral service for him at the appointed time. The investigation is still ensuing. I want to thank TV 17 while I was doing a press conference dealing with Vote Detroit. The importance of Detroit is getting out and voting and filling out the census and creating a trilogy partnership with Charles H. Wright Museum and Occupy the Corner. I'm grateful for a young man named Darren who When I asked a question about the case, he responded back to me. He wasn't aware of it, but he would look into it, and he kept his word. He went and looked, and it had not reached their station. They called their anchor, who in turn called me. And in just a short period of time, we assembled Kelvin's family and his friends and a group of people, including his son. And usually the news inflames instead of informs these days. We don't have the Walter Cronkite, Dan Rather kind of news. If it bleeds, it leads. But I saw for an unusual moment in that time where Kim Russell and the anchor who was there carefully and prayerfully was patient with the family to let them tell this story about who this life was and who this life is, this spirit is called Minister Kelvin Wheeler Jr. And I'm grateful that whenever it is displayed, yes, protests erupted in the streets before it's over, and before people could get all the facts, they acted and reacted. And I speak and I say to even some of those in the streets, don't just react every time you hear something. Get the facts, understand the case before you move, because you can discredit a good cause. You can take a good thing and do bad things by just reacting, because there are people who want to know and believe. Yes, what happened to George Floyd was heinous, and black lives do matter, but it ought to matter to you as well. Let's be patient, let's be careful, let's get all the facts, and know everybody's not our enemy. I thank God for those police officers who were on the scene of that tragic scene of my son, was able to protect the perimeter so that the evidence could properly be grabbed, because if people had just rushed in because they were trying to get to him, they could have destroyed evidence that could lead to the killer. Thank you for those officers who do serve and protect and understand their job and do it well, even under pressure. I pray for you. But I also encourage you that when you know that there are those who do not, because we still get the stories of those who are not doing it, I ask that you stand and have that same courage to turn in those who we quote unquote call bad apples, because we can't afford a bad apple. One bad apple spoils a whole bunch. As we pray today, I won't pray vocally. I'll just ask that we bow for a moment in silence and pray before I move into this word for today. And I pray that it is an encouraging word for you. Lord, I will lift mine eyes into the hills. Whence cometh my help? My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. Shall we pray? Fresh on us, Holy Spirit, descend, heavenly dove. Stay right here with us, fill us with your love, and for these blessings we'll lift our hearts in praise. For without a doubt we'll know that we have been revived when we have left this place. Lord, you are the source of my strength. You are the strength of my life. And even though my heart is heavy, I lift my hands in total praise to you. As we read and heed your word today, God, remind us that you are not just resource, but source. You're not just the faucet, but you're the river. And whatever we need, it is an unfailing, continuous source. Even as we were at the candlelight vigil, when one candle went out, someone leaned over and could light it with theirs, because the fire never needs to go out. if we continue to be in fellowship with you and you with us. Lord, I will live mine eye to the hills, knowing all of my help is coming from you. Your peace you give me, hallelujah, just when I need it most, in times of storm. You are the strength when I'm weak and I'm faint of my life. I don't live surrendering to the devil and his evil ways, or murder, or violence, or pestilence, or pandemics in the land, but I lift my hands in total praise to you. Would you sing it with me, family? Join me wherever you are. Lord, I will lift mine eyes to the I preaching time. Lift those hands. I lift my hands in total praise. Hallelujah. And the angels sang. Amen. The cherubim sang. Amen. In the universe, they sing amen. In America, they sing amen. In Africa, they sing amen. In China, they sing amen. The whole world sing. The heavens sing. Amen. Man. Hallelujah. Exodus chapter 13 is where we are. Exodus 13, the next chapter. The next chapter, Exodus 13. I ended in chapter 12 on last week. Thank you for those who came in our outdoor service. Thank you for those who participated in worship. We had a marvelous time. You ought to go back and check us out and look at that service. We talked about, amen, a wonderful song title that was given by John P. Key. And it was a message that I hope blessed you. And I hope that you will continue to know that you can come out of whatever you're in. And like the children of Israel, you can begin to declare your exodus. You can declare, hallelujah, that you are coming out. I want to just go to chapter 13 and begin at verse 17. Read. It reads these words, and it came to pass when Pharaoh had let the people go, that is, after they had been released and came out, that God led them not through the way of the land of the Philistines, although that was near. For God said, lest peradventure the people repent when they see war, and they return to Egypt. But God led the people about through the way of the wilderness of the Red Sea. And the children of Israel went up harnessed out of the land of Egypt. And Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, for he had straitly sworn the children of Israel, saying, God will surely visit you, and ye shall carry up my bones away hence with you. And they took their journey from Succoth and encamped in Etham, in the edge of the wilderness. And the Lord went before them by day in a pillar of cloud, to lead them the way, and by night in a pillar of fire, to give them light to go by day and night. He took not away the pillar of the cloud by day, nor the pillar of fire by night from before the people. I want to just use this passage and borrow from an old hymn of the church as a title. Where he leads me, I will follow. Where he leads me, I will follow. How did you learn how to follow? Everybody wants to take a leadership course to learn how to be a leader because they want to boss up. They want to be large and in charge. They want to be the big baller, the shot caller. But how did you learn how to follow? Do they teach fellowship courses? Are there places where people would actually sign up, not to say I want to learn how to be a leader, but I want to learn how to follow leadership? The world is not in a bad place because we just have bad leaders. Because we have some good leaders, even some great leaders. But I believe the world is in a bad place because we've got people who don't know how to follow. Well, I don't ever remember taking a course in fellowship in grade school, high school, college, or even seminary. But I do remember as children we played games, and I don't know who made them up. But all I know is we played games as children. And this inventor, I believe, was trying to teach us, DeMarcus, on how to follow. Games like red light, green light. Oh yeah, I just struck a nerve with somebody of your memory. You remember that game, red light, green light, where a leader is chosen and everyone else starts and everybody gets on the line, and at that starting point, we were starting at that point, and there's a leader chosen and they're way up the way, and while they're there, the leader turns their back to them and says green light, and everybody starts moving, and then all of a sudden he'll turn around and say red light. And when he turns to say red light, if you're caught still moving, you got to go back and start over at the starting line. Any still moving person that fails to freeze on the spot, not can just stay there, but they got to go back and start all over again. The leader is only replaced when a person can follow long enough to get to the place where they're close enough where they can tag the leader because they learned how to follow. Well, maybe you learn by a game called Simon Says. You know Simon Says. One person, again, is chosen to be a leader with as many players as you wish to have, and the leader stands in front of the group, and the leader is identified who they are, and they begin to give vocal commands. Touch your toes, touch your nose. But you're only supposed to obey the commands that begin with the words Simon says. Oh, I'm really messing with you this morning, aren't I? Because if you were given a command and you did it, but Simon didn't say do it, I can quit right here. Yes, Brother Gabriel, you got disqualified and put out of the game because you followed instructions, but they weren't Simon said instructions. Or maybe you just learned the basic game called Follow the Leader. It's most simple and basic of them all. Children's game where it's first required for a leader to be chosen, and they were called the head of the line, and everybody lined up behind the leader, and then the leader then moved around to various places of their choosing. All the followers had to mimic the leader's actions. And any player who failed to follow whatever the leader did was executed out of the game. In each case, I'm grateful for those persons who were teaching us not just how to lead, but they were teaching us how to follow. I believe this text is a text that's designed to help us understand that God was not trying to just get Moses in line. He did that in his desert place. Moses got prepared by God at a burning bush, at a place after 40 years in Egypt and 40 years in the Midian desert. God had already had him in leadership training school. But now, God is trying to complete the process because he doesn't just need to have a great leader, he needs to have faithful followers. I'm preaching this text today because last Sunday, after we had a wonderful experience in worship, and I had to talk with one of our staff leaders who could not meet with me the following day. And so I said, well, listen, let's meet now. And our time of meeting kind of went about 40, 45 minutes or so, and I was actually ending the discussion by making a statement about a restaurant called Wendy's, who started by Dave Thomas. But Dave Thomas named that restaurant after his daughter Wendy, who now heads the organization and leads, because every great leader must have a follower that can come behind them. And even though the restaurant was named after her, it didn't mean that she had the principle of knowing what to do with it. But whatever it is her turn, her time to provide leadership. And as the door opened, I was making the statement that even when you receive people's ideas and suggestions, remember who Wendy is. I looked outside the door, and there stood my minister, Kelvin Wheeler. Frankly, I was somewhat surprised, because I'd been there long enough that I thought that he, like others, would have exited. And even though armor bearers usually are trained to stay until the job is done, and sometimes you don't know how long it'll be, because like it was in the days of Moses, when he was on the mountaintop talking to God and told Joshua to follow, he never told him how long he'd be gone, never how long he'd stay, but he just had to learn to follow his leader. And while he was in this fellowship mode, and while he was in this place, in this space where fellowship was important to be done, I looked out the door, and when I saw Minister Wheeler, I said to myself, he finally gets and understands what it means to be a true armor bearer. He had started the day out that way when he was setting up outside. He was doing things not his way, but the way he believed his leader would want him to do it. He was socially spacing and making sure chairs were out, so much so that he even asked for a ruler to space out the chairs. He went and he was doing various things and going places. He got there early. He stayed late. He was maintaining excellence. He didn't even get distracted, and sometimes he could be easily distracted. But when people were trying to engage him, he didn't. I even had another preacher say to me later on, what was wrong with Kelvin? He didn't speak to me today. And I said to them, he was focused today. He was not to be distracted. I didn't quite understand, but I'm so glad to know that particular day that he was on top of his game. He was following leadership that wasn't even present, because he knew the words that would hit. He was able to shift from one assignment to another when I needed to have a Facebook Live set up by iPad, which was important, because when one thing went down, something else would continue. And he understood, always plan with a plan B in mind. And the reason why people were able to enjoy the service, because no matter how great a leader you have, they will fail you. But you always need to know God's got somebody with a plan B. As he was learning this as principles of pastorate, as I was training him and leading him in that particular way, I was pleased to be able to see that on this particular day in this experience, and we talked right after that some 2 hours or so, and he asked me the question. He said, what did you mean by Wendy? And I went and told him the story about what I was sharing. And then he asked the question, why did you close after you had done such a marvelous job of preaching that text? And you came back, and when you slowed down, you went back to verse 50 and 51 of chapter 12 and talked about following godly leadership and how they didn't execute it until the next chapter. What did you mean by the next chapter? I said, well, Kelvin, I think you just helped me to get my sermon for next week. And he did. And that's why I'm preaching it to you, because maybe you needed to hear that. He's no longer here, but he hears me now from an eternal audience and platform. And he smiles down because he understood something I hope you can understand. And that is, even though they had been prepared for leadership, waited 430 years for this moment to come. And even when Pharaoh had let them go and said, be gone, and given them the spoils of Egypt, they had not yet moved until the next chapter. And in this next chapter where I am today, it helps us to understand that when they did move, they had to move a particular way. And I asked Kelvin, I said, get my Bible, son. And he got it. I said, turn to Exodus 13 and go down to verse 17 and read. And he read these passages of scripture that I'm reading to you right now. And in my preaching message today, I'm just going to take another 10 or 15 minutes to just talk about what he saw and what I said that would help him understand some questions. His first question basically was, Pastor, we keep saying that it took them 40 years, and you preach and teach about the 40-year journey. But why did it take them so long? I said, Kelvin, that's a good question. Because it shouldn't normally have taken so long, because it was only a 40-day journey. Not 40 years. It was only a 40-day journey from Egypt. Had they gone by way of the Mediterranean Sea and traveled northward, and gone by the seacoast and gone around and come down through the Canaan land, which is now then, it was only a 40-day journey. But it took them 40 years because they didn't go north, they went south. South by way of Mount Sinai. South by way of the mountainous region. South through the wilderness place. South through the desert. South through the hot terrain. South through scorpions. South through snake bites. Threats. South where there was no health care. No hospitals. South where there was little water. South where there was not many provisions. And he said, is it because Moses didn't know how to lead? I said, no, it's not. Read the text again. And I shared with him that in every case of leadership, sometimes people don't understand the leader. You just need to learn how to follow the leader. But don't just follow any leader. Make sure you're following a godly leader. Remember the games I told you, red light, green light. Remember the games I told you, Simon says, remember the games I told you, follow the leader. Each one there was an appointed leader, a chosen leader. I don't know how they were appointed in those games, but in life, when you are following a leader, make sure God has chosen them. Pharaoh was a leader, but Moses was God's man. Nebuchadnezzar was a leader, but Daniel was God's man. Ahab was a leader, but God's man was Elijah, who's followed up by Elisha. Yes, there were leaders, both male and female, Old Testament. Esther's husband was the leader that was leading the people, but Esther was the leader who was leading God's people. And we can look through life and we can see in various moments where there's established people who may be in a position and have a title, but just because you have the title don't mean you carry the title. Yes, George Wallace was a leader, but it was a Martin King that was God's man. De Klerk was a leader, but a man named Mandela was God's man. Yes, and even right now, COVID-45 may be a leader, but God is looking for a man or a woman who can stand and be a prophetic voice even in these pandemic times. Don't just be any kind of leader, because gangs have leaders. Drug lords have leaders. Leaders can be good or bad. My bosses can be created in any situation, but can you be a godly leader? But not only that, in each case, not only must you be a godly leader, but I said, Kelvin, there can only be one general leader at a time. You can have a lot of people who support leadership. You can have a lot of people who ride on the horse, but only one can be the one with the reins. And I was saying that and sharing that, and he was saying, well, you know, Pastor, I'm going to be a great leader and sharing the pastor and things of that nature. And you know, I'm going to be able to deal with this. And finally I said to him, I said, well, Kelvin, I hate to tell you this, because yes, it's a good image to have with you being the Lone Ranger on the horse, like, you know, riding off in the sunset and you being that. And I said, but you're not Lone Ranger nor Kimosabe, you're the horse. God wants to ride you. And the reason why sometimes you get heavy-handed statements is because not I want to break your spirit, not because I want to tame you down and take away your ability to run and run fast and run great, because you got great skills. You got skills beyond the average and beyond the most. But at some point you got to learn how to let somebody put a saddle on you and a bit in your mouth and ride you and trust you with children who may need to ride you in a petting zoo or in a place of a farm. You have to be under control. And God is the leader. He is the rider. Never mistake who the leader is, Kelvin. I know sometimes you want to be the leader, but even when you are a leader, you are still a follower. Acts 20:26. When Paul gathers them around him, and he gathers them and he's getting ready to depart to the Ephesus leaders, he says to be faithful to the church that God has set them apart as overseers, not owners. He didn't turn over the deed. He didn't say, I'm out of here, you can have the church. No, Jesus paid a precious price for the church. And I said, whatever happens in life, don't take it personal, because it doesn't belong to you. You're just an overseer. You'll just be the one who sees over. But always keep in mind it belongs to somebody else. And when you take somebody else's property long enough, you begin to think it's yours, like loaning somebody a lawnmower. And 3 years later, they come to get it, and you act like you have to loan it to them when it's really theirs all along. So be careful, you always know. And I said, Kelvin, don't worry about it, because I had that same mistake. I was trying to deal with when to crack the reins and when to speed up or slow down. And yes, I need to do that as an under shepherd, but in the overall arch of things, never take anything personal. God told Moses, they haven't rejected you, they rejected me. I said, not only is there only one leader at a time, and that leader must be a godly leader, but they're chosen of God. And I said to him, they must be identifiable. It must be clear. I said, you can't just get lost. You can't just be one of the group. You can't just default to some committee and let them decide everything. You just can't default to other people who have great degrees in the world, because trustees at a bank don't always have to necessarily make trustees at your church. PhDs in an educational institution may not always be the best Sunday school teachers. You need to always know that whatever God holds you accountable as an overseer, you need to see over. You don't have to do it, but you need to hold people accountable to make sure it's done a godly way. Because ultimately, like he did with Adam, no matter who messes up in the garden, he's going to come and say, Adam, where are you? Leaders not only identifiable. And I said to him, Kelvin, you can't even get too far ahead of the group, because I know you like to take off and run. I said, but if you get too far ahead, they'll mistake you for the enemy and start shooting at you. A shepherd stays close to the sheep, even though there's some things you could see ahead of time, even there's some destinations you want to go ahead of time and things you want to do. You got to learn to stay close to the sheep, because the sheep don't move as fast as you can. Sometimes they wander, sometimes they nibble, sometimes they graze, sometimes they sit and roll and get lost in others. And the reason why some places and some people never get to a place on time is because they have to deal with dirty, stinky, smelling, loss of memory, falling, can't get up sheep. Moses knew his way because he was an expert on deserts. Moses knew the way because he spent 40 years of his life on the backside of a Midian desert. He knew the way. He was trained by Jethro as a shepherd. He knew the way, because even though he was a prince of Egypt in those 40 years, the next 40 years, came because he was trying to help his own brothers. That's a whole nother sermon I'll have to preach another time. But when he knew he was, when he found out who he really was and tried to stand up and help another Hebrew brother, he came to find out that he paid the price not by Pharaoh's hands, but he left because his own brother turned on him. And some of us are pained not because of some outside enemy, some outside hater, but an inside job. And yes, he left, but what he didn't know was that he had spent 40 years on the backside of a desert, but he was still in training, just like he was in training the first 40 years of his life, being raised by Pharaoh, because the only way he knew when in the last chapter how to get back and forth to Pharaoh in those plagues, when God took him back, the reason why he knew how to get to Pharaoh without being killed by some assassin, because he spent 40 years in that house. And people knew him. I could see him when he came back, and they say, "Hey, Mo, where you been? Hey, Mo, don't go that way, come this way." And sometimes God will give you favor because you've been somewhere that he's taking you back to. And if you're faithful, God will use you in a way where when other people are dying, he'll let you live. He could find the exits in others. And all Pharaoh knew is when he looked up, there was Moses in his face. I'm sure he asked, "How did you get past my guards? How did you get here? How did you walk here?" God let him spend 40 years in a place he never knew. He was giving him instructions. In the next 40 years, he was on the backside of a desert, learning desert discipline, learning wilderness warfare, learning by Jethro in another life how to be a responsible father and husband. And he had a family with these Midianites, black people in a desert. And as he was there with these Midianites, and God caught him, called him at a burning bush, he had had 80 years of experience he never even knew he had in a class called fellowship. That was his red light, green light. That was his Simon Says. That was his follow the leader game. It wasn't a game, it was his life. And let me say to some of you, God has taken you away, and it ain't funny because it's not a game. It's serious, and you need to be learning the principles and the lessons of how to follow. Anybody can get up and just call out a cadence, but can you follow? And the best leaders were always great followers first. And then I said to him, "Kelvin, to be a qualified leader, not only you must be a certified follower, but I said there's a danger in having leaders who violate the rules of leadership. They give unclear or biased instructions, or refuse to give up the leadership position when the time comes." You see, because the reason the children of Israel, Kelvin, did not go the shortest way is not because Moses said, "Let's go this way," and they wanted to go another way. No, the Bible says God led them. Oh yes, in the opening verse of 17. So stop preaching and talking about how they will wander and didn't go. No. It says God led them the long way. God took them the long way. God led them south instead of north. North was closest to Canaan by way of the Mediterranean Sea, but he led them south to the area of the Red Sea, to Mount Sinai, because he said, "I want to date them in the desert." And that really puzzled Calvin. Why would God take them a long way when there was a shorter route? I said, keep reading, son. It tells you right there. It says because there were opposition on the short route. There were Philistines, like the one that I preached about a couple of weeks ago, like David, and then later his 4 brothers and others. And he took them that way, and he said he didn't take them that way because he knew they were not prepared to fight. He had to get the fear out of them. He had to help them to know how to fight. And let me tell you how he learned how to fight. He taught them not only a desert discipline, but wilderness warfare. But he told them, as long as you follow Moses and Moses follows me, you'll win every war. Israel was never a big army. It never had the greatest military weapons. Never had more size or girth. The Philistines, the Midianites, the Jebusites, the Hivites, anything that has a night were big Negroes. They knew how to fight. They were great warriors. But what they had to learn was that you did not win. It's not by might, it's not by power. But it's by following godly leadership, he says, that you will win this war. And so I said to him, you've got to be careful because there's a danger. Reason why we got coronavirus now is because leaders who don't play by the rules. And when they knew something was coming, they did not prepare the people for it. They couldn't follow God's instructions. They went their way and not God's way. Faulty leadership will not only let it come and have it, but also faulty leadership won't help you get rid of it, because you're after trying to help secure people's livelihood, not trying to save people's life. Good leaders will say, stay home. Faulty leaders will say, open your business, go to the beaches, make some money. Be careful who you're following. You can't do what you want to do the way you want to do it. Faulty leaders play by their own rules, not established principled ones everybody else takes an oath or a covenant to abide by. The reason why you have rogue police is because they don't follow the rules. The reason why you got rogue citizens who playing lock them up and shoot them up in the streets and taking people's lives every weekend, 77 in Chicago last week, of everybody else in one of my, is because you got people who don't want to play by the rules. The reason why you got rogue parents is they want to have children, they want to have fun making children, but they don't want to raise none and take care of none, because they don't want to play by any rules. You got rogue politicians, you ought to vote out of office and not keep there because they want to get up. They don't want to bring no bills before the people. They don't want to help people to have rules against assault weapons. They don't want to talk about militarization of our communities. They don't want to deal with immunity or any other issues that we got to deal with, even though we've seen time after time after time mass killings and shootings of even our children. It's because you've got leaders that need to be voted out of office because they're rogue, because they don't want to play by the rules. You got rogue presidents who will release their friends and give them immunity before they spend a second in jail. Clemency to your cronies, while other people remain waiting, and because they don't have any money and because of a cash bail system, they're waiting 2 and 3 years locked up. People who are locked up because they've had excessive sentences and not able to do it. People who are also in the cabinet locked up. And how you going to be a great leader when almost everybody you appointed has been on their way to jail? And yes, rogue preachers won't preach what's good and sound. They'll just preach what sounds good. I said to him, Kelvin, be careful what kind of leader you are, because God chose you, and you must follow his lead. And I close, and next week I will help you to understand the latter part of this text, because I said to him that every leader not only must have a leader in faith or follow them, but I said to him, Moses did well when he listened to God, and he only messed up when he followed his passions, when he followed what the people said, when he followed majority voting, when he followed what he thought was the way. There's a way that seems right, but the end thereof is the way of death. I said the way that he led them, and I'll pick this up in my next message. I said he led them in a pillar of cloud in the day. He led them in a pillar of cloud in the night. That's how he knew it was God. God talked to him vocally at a burning bush, but you're not always going to hear the audible voice of God, Kelvin. Sometimes he speaks clearly and you know it's him, like it was when he called you to preach. You heard God's voice. Just like I believe he heard God's voice after that assassin's bullet came to my herd. I believe you heard God's voice say, come on to my house. I know you were on your way to your house, but come on to mine. But I said to him, son, there are going to be days in your pastoral leadership you won't hear God's audible voice, and you'll feel like you're wandering like they are. You'll be wandering and wondering. But he doesn't leave you void. He gives you a sign. Scriptures call it a theophany. I told him to look it up. Unfortunately, he'll never have a chance to come tell me what it means. But I believe he did, because he was a studious kind of guy. He followed leadership, and he was even studying to finish his seminary degree, because he followed my directions when he got into junior college and finished. He got into University of Michigan, finished, and he was about to finish there at Ashland, and I told him God led them through something of a theophany. Pillar of cloud in the day, fire in the night. I said it was God. And I said to him, it was not two different things. It was the same thing seen different ways at different times of the day and night. It was the pillar of God. But in the daytime, it looked one way. In the nighttime, it looked another way. It was still the same pillar and the same God. And you've got to learn how to follow God in the daytime of your life and in the nighttime. It's nighttime for some of you right now, like it feels like for me. But let me just say to you, just because it feels dark, God is still leading. Just because it feels bad, God is still leading. You don't have to wait for the sun to come out. The sun is always up. It's permanent, it's fixed. You just can't see it because of dark clouds. But rainy clouds came last night, but the sun is shining right now. Because storm clouds don't last always. Yes, it may be difficult now, but the sun stays fixed. But sometimes you are turned in a direction where you turned away from the light. Keep rotating. Keep turning, because God will turn your face back towards him, and you will see the sun always was shining, because it never goes anywhere. And I'm not just talking about the SUN right now. I'm opening up the door a moment for the SUN. I'm talking about the SUN right now. The Son of God is shining, and he wants to shine in your life. Can you follow? I know you want to lead in many aspects of your life, even in your own will. You want to do what you want to do your way at your time and your place, and you had a life plan, you got plans, and you sometimes are frustrated because things aren't happening at the time of your life you thought they should, but people who you thought would be in your life are now gone. But God reserves the right to hold life and death in his hands. He says it, life and death are in my hands. And he can make all things work together for the good of them that love him and are called according to his purpose. I thank God that he gave me the privilege of a son that I could teach how to lead, but I couldn't make him. He told me, he said, thank you for making me go to school. I said, I didn't make you go. I just instructed you, I encouraged you, and I even told you to go. But you had to make that decision. And because you could go there by my directions, but you had to stay there by your own discipline. God is leading somebody in this moment. Can you follow? Can you hear his voice? Can you follow his directions? If you want to be a leader and remain a good leader, then learn how to follow his voice. Don't be like Moses in the latter years of his life, because he wasn't able to get over to promised land. After all those 40 years, he ended up at Kadesh Barnea, right at the brink of blessing, the doorstep of deliverance, at the narthex of his new day, because he listened to people and not to God. Oh, his destiny was secure, but he missed some blessings on earth. Don't miss your blessings. Where he leads me, I will follow. I'll go with him all the way. Where he leads, the door is open. Me, I will follow. Where he leads, me, I will follow. I know it's difficult sometimes, but where he leads, me, I will follow. Oh Lord, oh yes I will. I'll go with him all the way. Right before I came in to preach, I got a call from my cousin. Cousin Vicky said your 99-year-old aunt just at the brink of her 100th year, and she wanted to live to see that way, but she's in transition. She may not make it. I said, is she still breathing? She goes, yes. I said, well, listen, I know what the doctor said, and you're a nurse. I know you know what medicine, science, and others says, but she'll live as long as God says live. Because she's following him. That's who she's followed for 99 years. And even if she doesn't make it to 100, don't worry about it. She's going to live for eternity. And there are no numbers there. I'll go with him. With him. Not just halfway, but all the way. God bless you. Support us by giving. The instructions for giving, we give every week and they're clear. Use Givilify. Go. Don't follow me. Follow what Malachi says. Follow what Luke says. Old and New Testament. Follow what 2 Corinthians says. You can read any part of the passage. From Genesis to Revelation, you'll see giving. And everywhere you see the word love show up, giving is somewhere close by. God so loved the world, he gave. Husband, love your wives. Christ loved the church. How did he love? He gave. Everywhere you see love, giving comes along. So if you really love the Lord and you love your church and love the ministry and the work, nobody has to tell you to give. Just, you'll do it. You'll give, not just traditionally, but sacrificially. Givilify is a place you can go. Look for Liberty Temple Baptist Church. Look for the torch, and it'll show you how, the place you can give. Bless our ministries. You can give by Cashapp, Liberty Temple Baptist, $ Liberty Temple Baptist. You'll find us. You can give. You can put it in an envelope and bring it to the church, mail it to the church. You can come use the credit card machine, 9:30 to 5:30 every day. However you want to give, just know that you give. But not only give, but let me say forgive, because God leads us to do that too. Receive the blessings of a benediction. May the Lord bless and keep you. May the Lord bless you in special ways and make his face shine brightly upon you and be gracious unto you. May that God lift the light of his countenance upon you and grant you his shalom, his ever-abiding peace. And may that God be with you, you, and even you until the end of the age. And where he leads, that's where you follow. Go with him all the way. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. The people said amen, amen, and amen.
And now we have come to the portion of our service we can all participate in no matter where we are, giving. We now offer many ways in which you can be a supporter of your church. Online giving can be a quick and easy way to accomplish this. You can now download apps directly through your phone's media store to support this effort. The Cash app, which would be completely green with a $sign in the middle, can be used to give. Once you have set it up, you will be able to search for us under the name $ Liberty Temple Baptist. The Givilify app, which will have a blue background with the word give in the center, can also be used to give. Once that is set up, you will be able to find us under the name Liberty Temple Baptist Church. Always be sure to look for the torch to ensure that you are giving to the correct ministry. But if you would like to swipe your card, write a check, or use good old-fashioned cash, you can visit our church office Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. daily, and there will be someone here to assist you. We would like to thank you in advance for being continued supporters of Liberty Temple Baptist Church.